welcome. So, things are a little different tonight, because the topic of today's episode, ironically, Raptor is not familiar with, and such like that. However, a regular guest star of ours who's been returning almost as a secondary co-host of the podcast now, Dr. Clef, Crow. What name are we going, for you from now on?
Mm,
I'm just gonna say Crow. But ironically enough, I think Dr. Clef for this case would be a little bit more efficient, considering what we're gonna talk about has a character named Crow. And yes, if you guys saw the advertisement and saw the title of today's episode, we're gonna talk about the dumpster fire that is the writing in RWBY. Now, preface this a few things. One, we are fans of the show. We actually really like the concept of the world and everything that it originally was going for. It's just that as we review and look back on the show, um it
it,
has some faults. And then second of all, we don't mean when we call out certain people, we don't mean it in a malicious way and such like that. It's more in a sense of a critique of saying that they're not playing exactly to the strengths that they should be playing. And then third of all, if some cursing, I'm just saying, a third warning, and this is just more on the sense of how livid we might get later down the line. If there might be some cursing involved, I don't know, and such like that. If there is, there's probably a warning before this episode, and such like that. That cursing might slip every now and then and stuff. We're just gonna get livid, and honestly, I can't be bothered to try to bleep us out every single time. I try to be as family friendly, but here's your warning. All right, so where do we, where do you want to start with this, Clef?
Monty was done dirty, and volumes 5 through 9 were just fanfic.
Yeah, like, okay, so one of the first issues that we have with RWBY and such, and I know the advertisement that I posted included volume 4. Granted, volume 4 has a little bit of like shipping involvement hinted along, but it's more prominent between 5 through 9 more than anything and such like that, versus volume 4 was kind of like a weird transition point between writers kind of thing. Is that valid to say, Clef?
I would say it's a valid point. I just wouldn't say it's the only point.
Yeah. So RWBY does one of the things that I dislike a lot about a series, where they fall very heavily on fan demands more than their own creative integrity.
Chopped. Yeah.
And
No, I have nothing against Miles. I watched Rooster Teeth basically since the get-go.
it's R.I.P. Rooster Teeth as of this recording.
Yes, R.I.P. Rooster Teeth, they did it to themselves. Anyway, that's for a different video.
Yeah.
No, anyway, look. As someone who really liked the show from the beginning and who wanted nothing but the best for the show after Monty's unfortunate passing. Hell, I even saw, like, now that when I really think about it now, I watched Rooster Teeth. I watched RWBY before even knowing it was Monty's project, and I remember back in the day when Monty had done
The trailers.
No, he had done the Dead Fantasy animation. Those were, for one person to be able to get away with that level of like animational transition was amazing.
And granted, we're trying very hard to be respectful about the whole about Monty's. Technically, it's just Monty's child at this point. RWBY is his child, his brainchild, and such. But we have to acknowledge that things did go awry after his passing in terms of it. Because okay, For those who are not aware of RWBY, and I'd be very surprised for how long it's been on the internet, and only recently in the past like year or so it's been taken off of the internet in a sense. I think the first season is still readily available on YouTube. Is that not right?
Yeah, the first, second, and I believe the third season are all available on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only season that was never available on YouTube, or I think even on Rooster Teeth proper, was Volume 9, the
Yeah.
last season,
Yeah.
which I would like to state was later by the same main writer, Miles, was decanonized, so nothing in that volume actually matters.
Which I feel like it's a shame because ironically enough, I feel like in volume 9 he started getting into the groove of writing for RWBY. In a sense, like, how do I put it?
That was just 5 volumes too fucking late. Jeez.
Yeah, cuz like here's the thing. Well, okay. The first question is what got you really invested into RWBY and its world? Personally for me, I'm always a character driven person. So seeing these characters live in the world that is Remnant was very fascinating to me, not only as a viewer, but potentially seeing how much more could be expanded from this world to video games, to even just like I saw a lot of people try to turn Ruby's World of Remnant into D&D campaigns and such like that. I participated in a few myself.
So my favorite part of RWBY was essentially the potential it had
Mm-hmm.
and the potential it missed.
Yeah.
So that being said, it was from my understanding and from the understanding that Miles and oh my god, I forgot his name. I'm not gonna be able to live that down if I don't know.
But yeah, like we had somewhat.
Carrie,
Yeah.
Carrie, there we go. Okay, so it was from my understanding that Miles and Carrie didn't write the script and then animate it. Monty kind of dragged them along, animated, and then had them write around the animation, which, after his unfortunate passing, appears to have been the flip script that, like, really started sending everything downhill.
Yeah. And ironically enough, it's just how do I put it? Even if you have no context into the world of RWBY and such like that, just watch the RWBY red, black, yellow, and white trailers, and it oozes personality just from the trailers alone to be interested to these characters and such like that. And it's such a shame that we never got much personality more after Monty's passing and stuff. Because all the other characters that we got, they served a purpose, but they never ooze personality beyond their purpose, if that makes sense.
Yes. So I perfectly understand what you're trying to say, and again, it feels such wasted potential in the sense of it wasn't until they hit volume 8 where Miles and Carrie finally started getting a group. More Miles and Carrie, because I think at that point, if I'm remembering correctly, it was basically just Miles writing.
Mm-hmm.
And Miles finally started catching a groove. He started doing the whole diversity and inclusion thing, but he started doing it correctly. It felt natural. It didn't feel forced in.
It's not even just like the little like tidbits of cultural things. He started getting into the groove of the style of writing that RWBY originally was going in, which was
Yeah.
that it's comically optimistic, but there's that hint of darkness there that you have to accept within that optimism.
Also felt, God, brain. It also felt like, again, I have to emphasize this one. He learned how to write the diversity and inclusion side of things as actual people instead of something that had to be checklisted onto it.
Yeah, because one of the main biggest problems within the world of RWBY is the fauna versus human civil war that was within the world
Yes.
of Remnant. That's a hard thing to write on, but the thing is that ironically enough, in volume 3 they handled that fairly well within just the small cast of characters that they had at the time. And then to expand upon that, it's a big ask, but you've done it on a smaller scale. It it should translate a little bit better if you bring the same principles to that larger scale. Sure, there's going to be potentially more conflict with that larger scale, and potentially people might not agree with it as a result. But you are going into the right direction of this is the message that we're trying to point towards, and hopefully, optimistically, we can have an outcome like this.
Yeah, it just felt like he was starting to come into his own, which again, unfortunate timing with the closing of Rooster Teeth and whatnot.
Yeah.
But the first, okay, again, I'm working completely off memory. It has been
A long day.
quite a bit since I've gone back to rewatch any of the older RWBY or any of the older commentary because we're making no big surprise here. We're making a video game. We're trying to follow some comprehension for world building. RWBY was a really good example. At least the first 3 volumes for me were a really good example of world building or attempted world building.
I at the time when RWBY's first 3 volumes, like aside from looking out into the world, looking within the main setting that we were going on, which was Beacon Academy, I liked the system that they were going on with we get to learn more of the world within the school system by having other schools visit the academy via the tournament and such like that. We get a peek into what the other what the other countries are potentially like through the students that participate in the tournament. And
Exactly.
that's an interesting way of world building that we only really get to see I think more in anime than anything. And I think that's something that fell off later down the series. Am I right to say that volume 1 to 3 was more anime leaning than but once volume 4 kicked in, they went very traditional American comic book style.
Yes and no. So okay, again, I'm going completely based off memory. Monty had an established thing where he wanted volumes 1 to 3 not really to count as separate seasons, but as to count as one whole act for a first season.
Yeah, it's like a school arc setting.
It was the school arc. And essentially, at the end, I think he said that he wanted 10 seasons altogether, but each season was supposed to consist of 2 to 3 volumes each.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, no, he had a roadmap and a half. Now, how far he would have gotten through to it, we'll never know. But the fact that
I have faith.
yeah,
I have faith that he would have been able to by some crazy miracle. And if not, if story wise it wasn't going to, the animation and the fight scenes would have made up for it. Like the visual aspect, you know.
okay, the man for sure, whether Rooster Teeth survived or not, and he was still here to continue onwards or not. He had wherever he would have gone after RWBY, the man would have had a job wherever the hell he wanted.
Whether it be animating or dancing on DDR. Have you seen clips of that man playing on DDR? He was insane on that thing. But anyway, so after praising a bit of RWBY, we're gonna hit some specific details of what we dislike the most of what happened to RWBY and such like that. And personally, I'm gonna take the big chunk right now. Bumblebee was very forced.
Bumblebee was very forced. Bumblebee shouldn't have happened. Bumblebee was a fandom thing that Miles decided to bow into, and then when he had zero consequence behind his name, uncanonized it right then and there on the final episode went and said, you know what, everything that happened in the Ever After, it did not happen at all. They didn't even go through the Ever After. They fell straight through into the invasion of Vacchio.
And I dislike it a lot because Volume 9. Well, okay. The entire concept of Bumblebee. Well, yes, I love the fan art. I love the fan fiction. I like the cute moments that Blake and Yang have and such like that and everything. But after they were established as a couple and stuff like that, essentially their character was done. They got blown up in terms of character potential and everything. Yes, I understand most of the story is going to be revolved around Ruby, Ozpin and Oscar's storyline, Salem, and such like that. Everything that's going around on the background in terms of the world building. So relationships are kind of put into the back burner and stuff like that. I mean, look at Nora and Ren. They kind of also got kicked to the back burner as well, and such like that. But I feel like instead of taking it as, oh, it's a little topping to the Sunday that is their character, the ship was the entire Sunday, and now we have to do without it.
Yeah, no, okay. After the events of Volume, okay, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Monty has just died. Volume 4, had a lot of weight and expectation behind it.
Especially with the fall of Beacon and stuff like that. Yes, this is gonna be like potentially like very depresso expresso. A lot of characters are unsure of where to go now in certain things. That essentially was what was expected of Volume 4. They kind of created it as a season, like a actual literal season. So we had spring with new beginnings, summer with like fun events to and learning about oneself, the fall, which is where before winter all the bad things happen and such like that and everything. Winter, the coldest month where anything could happen and potential death is a thing. Yes, I understand. We're following that method from volumes 1 through 4. Explain 7 through 9, though.
Okay. 7, okay. Back to my topic real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I can excuse Yang and Blake basically going on their MIA BS. I'm trying very hard not to cuss. Their
It's
MIA
okay,
BS,
we already did the warning. Go nuts.
Okay, no, yeah, their MIA bullshit. We can't. We had Blake establish character development or begin establishing character development with Sun. We had her whole family lineage, her actually standing up for herself, her learning to do all these things. And the same thing goes for Yang. We had the whole build up where she relearned how to, accept her arm, move on with the fact she got her butt kicked, that she went from this happy-go-lucky kind of girl who was always looking for adventure to depresso expresso because one dude beat me and was very edgy while he did it. And they get over that hurdle, and then we get back to Adam, and that hurdle immediately props back up. Any character development that either one of them had was thrown out the window. Yang, in her moment of wanting to get revenge, doesn't actually get revenge. Adam is very unceremoniously killed with
Well, actually, ironically enough, you know what also killed? What Bumblebee also killed? As you're speaking of Adam's character throughout all of this, because there was a lot of headcanons on why Adam was the way that he was and such like that, other than, crazy ex-boyfriend and stuff like that of Blake and everything. But there was this headcanon going around, and I remember you and I talking about it in the past. We've been friends for a long time. We've had this conversation multiple times. Even, I think we started talking really in-depth about RWBY ever since volumes 6 and 7 or something like that. And,
it was volume 6.
Oh, yeah, somewhere around there. But I remember we were talking about it in a past conversation that we had a theory going around that Adam wasn't even trying to get the power that is the White Fang and stuff like that. He's just one of the grunts that is following orders and stuff, and that there is a higher power above him trying to actually rule the fondness and stuff like that and everything. He's just following orders and everything, and that they were previous partners and such. And it's like, how can you betray the White Fang kind of outlook? But then they turned him into this whole like crazy ex-boyfriend stuff, and it all just kind of went downhill in this character.
Yeah, no, any mystery or intrigue that Adam had was like it
Turned
was
into
written.
whiny entitled ex-boyfriend crybaby.
Yes, it was written out a window without any reasonable doubt of bringing it back in.
Mm-mm.
Despite the fact that it was at the start of, I think it was at 5. I don't remember exactly when it happened, but he essentially murders the leader of his own faction, coups the faction. Nobody bats an eye. Nobody does anything about it. This is it, according to the writing. This is something that's supposed to come out of left field and surprise everybody. But at that point, he's already kind of written to be the whiny ex-boyfriend that is very quote unquote obsessed with his ex. So it doesn't surprise you that he'd do this, and it's written in a way where
there's no redeeming from there and stuff like that, and that's all within 2 seasons. Because in 3 seasons, not even 3 seasons, I think we technically had 1 season with intrigue about Adam himself, 1 trailer, and technically 1 side episode that
trailer for Blake had more intrigue for Adam than 3 whole seasons of RWBY.
Yeah, and such like that. We had this interesting assumption that he's very strict because he's a Taurus and stuff like that. We thought, okay, he's very strict about it, he's bullheaded about his ways because he was raised in the White Fang, so thus Blake leaving is a sign of betrayal and such like that towards the White Fang. That seemed reasonable and stuff, but no, he's bullheaded at, oh wow, my girlfriend left me and stuff like that, and it's like, how dare she? Is
my girlfriend gay? She left me because gay.
She left me for a lesbian and such like that. And let's not forget the fact that technically there was another woman who's also infatuated with Blake, also lesbian and stuff, the chameleon girl.
I'm gonna be honest, I had completely forgotten about her. That's how little she was used.
She was there to be the lesbian representation, and that was about it.
Again, yes. I feel like that's where that checkmark comes in, where a lot of these characters prior to Volume 8 that were the quote unquote diverse characters, the representative characters from Volumes 4 to 8 were basically just there to checklist. They weren't there for any groundbreaking reason, for any story related reason. They were just there because we have to get the DEI checkmark in, or somebody's gonna yell at us.
John's sisters just show up. We have John's sister and her wife and their baby and stuff like that. It's like, oh yes, lesbian mom family and stuff like that. I get it. We needed some kind of source of home base while they were trying to bunker out over there before they could get all the way to Vacuo and stuff like that. Yeah. But you didn't even need to introduce them or anything of the and such like that. We could have just gone a side note of thanks for is hey Jean, thanks for thank your sister for letting us stay here. It's oh, don't worry, it's we didn't need to have that representation and stuff like that in there just to be thrown away kind of thing.
I'll excuse it just on the fact that it just kind of happens. I'll excuse it on that. It wasn't necessary. No. Did it serve any form of plot point? No. Also, no.
It's just we needed a setting. We needed to fill with people here.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a throwaway thing.
Because here's the thing. The reason I'm not getting I know we're recording this on Pride Month of all months and stuff like that, and I'm not trying to it was shoe the gay kind of thing. No. What I'm trying to say is that this could easily have been written of that it was Jean's sister who happens to also have a husband and a kid, and it wouldn't have made any difference.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah,
always ask, does the gay serve a bigger purpose besides the checkmark?
it it doesn't help though. Okay, the reason why, for me at least, I'm giving it a pass. But the reason why it irks me is because it was being written during a time where everything had to be checkmarked. So like you had to have something in there that represented everybody.
Yeah.
Even if it was a detriment to the story or a throwaway thing, it had to be in there for some reason or another.
And that's not just on internet media. That was also in Hollywood, let's be fair.
Yeah, that was everywhere. You would turn around and it was like, that woman right
Okay.
there, she's gay. Why is she gay? She's gay.
Uh,
Okay.
okay. And, okay. Going back to the whole Bumblebee plotline rather than the gay and stuff like that, it's just that, like, Blake and Yang's characters kind of just flatten to the sidelines and such. So we get more focus on Ruby. Not even Weiss, mind you. Ruby.
I feel like out of the four characters, Weiss probably had the best consistent character arc
Yeah.
without really meaning to have a consistent character arc.
Yeah, because what was it? She first became like the pretentious entitled princess kind of thing where she believes she is the best because again her family raised her in a way and stuff like that, so that was reasonable at the time. And then as she's hanging out more and more with her team, who are technically, yeah, they're all different, different like classes, right? They're and everything. And we're talking about like wealth classes in a means because Weiss is an heiress to a high to the Schneedust company. Yang and Blake are technically from like middle of nowhere, like average hometown kind of thing. And Blake, well, Blake's up
Yes,
on
you,
him
you can okay. Blake is basically a princess. When you really
in her
in
own
her own
island.
way, yeah, in her own island, she's basically a princess. Weiss is also basically a princess, but for a corporation where it's very well established that her dad married into the family, essentially usurped the mom's position, and to a certain degree, it was a warranted usurping because he pushed the family forward, but at what cost? It that became at like the devil you do, the devil you don't.
Yeah, but here's the thing with with Weiss's character arc, the more that she got used to seeing the points of view of other people who grew up differently than her and such like that from from different backgrounds, she became a better person out of all of that. She
She
became
grew.
she grew and such like that, and that's great, and everything. And that's the most consistent character arc. Ironically enough, whether she became a good guy or a bad guy, she's still a good character and stuff. If considering that we also have a spin-off anime of Ruby, which I understand it kind of sounds insane, but stay with me. There's a Japanese variation of Ruby where they redid the first season and took a turn to where Weiss became a dictator, where she
That
became the
like
villain.
volume 9 is canon.
Yeah, and ironically enough, it's still a very interesting take because yes, Weiss is a character that we've grown to love. By the time this anime had come out, she has been a very beloved protagonist that we follow along and identify as a good guy. So turning her into the antagonist was a little bit apprehensive for some of the fandom. But then when they saw the anime, it was like, oh no, that's reasonable. That's actually really cool. And it's still working within the boundaries of the world and the characters and such. You could understand where they went from point A to point B in either or. Blake and Yang, however,
We went from point A to point E, back to point B. We skipped all the way to point M and then got lost somewhere along the way to point D.
and I'm just like, okay.
These nuts.
um Okay, let's focus on each character together, and I'm gonna touch on Ruby a little bit, but hers is a long list of traumatizing stuff that we're gonna have to suggest on a separate on its own. Yang, okay, from the beginning, if we're gonna go timeline wise of how we see her in the show, she is considered the big sister, the optimistic, the most social person in the group, and such like that. She could get along with anyone. She is the ray of sunshine of the group, and I understand where people were shipping because you have Ray of Sunshine and you got the darkness, leave me alone, Black Cat. That is Blake,
Edge,
and
edge,
such.
edge, 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 edge.
Yes, which is fine. Black and yellow Bumblebee is that's fine. I understand the ships and stuff like that. I'm not gonna stop that there and everything. But then when they progress the character developments so that they kind of meet in the middle, for Blake in her character arc at the time, where she was obsessing over the white thing and such, who were stealing dust and everything, who is the only person that could talk reason with her other than the Sunshine character by showing that the sunshineness of the character is not all sunshine and rainbows and such. She's had her share of heartache and difficult and disappointments in her life through her mother. And yes, that's where they could meet in the middle and realize we're not that much different from each other. And yes, beautiful writing, great character development on both parts and everything and such like that. And yet people find it is like this is where they fell in love, and it's like please stop. Uh
Can we not?
uh Ironically enough, I feel like the only character that kind of since day one has been a good character is Crow. I've
Yes.
enjoyed every second with Crow.
I enjoyed every second until they fired Vic.
We're not gonna touch that. And such like
And
that.
look, I want to. Okay, no, I want to touch that just for
For
a
a few
second.
minutes. For a few minutes, okay.
I don't know what the hell happened to Innocent until proven guilty, because all of those allegations were not only later proven guilty, there was no repercussions for them. There was zero repercussions. The man is still trying to recover
His
any
entire
shred of
career.
yeah, his entire career was thrown out a window, spit on, set on fire, and then given to some random person on the street to use as a blanket.
Mm-hmm.
And he still can't get most of it back. And personally, I think what was done to him was terrible. He shouldn't have been fired like at all. He should have been suspended until proven guilty.
Yeah,
If
like
if they
I
wanted,
understand at the time until the allegations were cleared out. I understand as a company you want to keep your hands off of
you
it
want to cover yourself, yeah.
and such. But firing him outright was a bit drastic. You could have paused the production of the show until all of that cleared up. Yes, it took an entire year for that to happen, but I think the fans would have understood.
I feel like at the end of the day, the fans did understand, and a lot of fans got upset, and they didn't want to hire him back,
Mm-mm.
despite the fact that he was cleared. I don't understand why they did it. And to a certain degree, I'm kind of glad that Rooster Teeth went down the way it did. Because everything that made Rooster Teeth, everything that made RWBY decayed over time. The second the TOS has started to change, the second everybody became like really sensitive about any topic or really sensitive about anything, and that we lost that sense of like, oh, you can kid around with people, and oh, you can, risk offending someone,
Mm-mm.
like a lot of comedy does, in order for like people not to be triggered, and like, because they take everything too seriously. That's when we lost. That's when the degradation of Rooster Teeth, in my opinion, and the show RWBY as a whole, kind of just started dropping.
And okay, in touch to like going back to RWBY in a nutshell, losing Vic, they had to rewrite Crow's character in a sense and everything. And this is a very minor issue and such, but I think it's like a small issue on the pile of issues of the change for Crow was to make him sober. And yes, I understand. During that plot, that part of the plot line, he's sobering up for good reasons and stuff. Because every previous attempt leading up to that point of him sobering up, of him getting drunk, has been basically like a dumpster fire altogether. They get he's drunk, he's drowning his sorrows, and they almost got killed by Grim, who sucked like the happiness and soul out of you if it wasn't for Ruby having silver eyes and stuff like that, and him and he needs to shapen up and actually be a hunter. But well, two things: super minor. It's not that easy to sober up, going cold turkey and stuff like that. But they needed to explain some way for the reason his voice acting is a tiny bit different and such like that, and not
Yeah,
as gruff, I guess. But also, I
but it
was
really,
ready for a story plot line potential where he has to have an internal fight of not wanting to lean to the bottle, but them saying, "Crow, we understand you are you," and such like that. It's good that you're trying to go sober, but you don't need to make these sacrifices for us at the sake of your own at your own well,
like
like,
your own well-being.
yeah, and such like that, because there is dangers to going cold turkey,
And
especially
that's
for what he's like a very he's a long time alcoholic.
he's a long-time alcoholic and a massive. He has like his character's written from my understanding of writing and like personal experiences with friends. He's also in a state of consistent depression
So
that's only weaned off by the alcohol.
yeah, so it's a little bit dangerous to do so. Just a tiny bit. It's a little dangerous and everything, and such like that. And again, that's a super minor issue. And such like that. That's just something I needed to address with the whole change of voice actor that affected and Rooster Teeth's handling of the entire thing. It's just a kind of thing. But okay, we have to talk about Ruby's character throughout the entire show because she has been a main staple of the entire series, and in fact, I think she's been in almost every episode, kind of.
Yes. And now that you mentioned Ruby, I want to address the homophobic Ruby memes that came out during Volume 9.
Okay, okay, okay.
That I don't think they meant it that way. I think people just took it and ran with it. But it comes back to what I was saying earlier, where like some people want there to be more risk to offending rather than less risk taken for a more boring story.
And even so, looking at the scene that they're referencing a lot for Ruby's homophobia and everything, I
Quote
don't
unquote.
take it as the homophobia and such like that. I took it as she is tired of everyone not taking the situation as seriously as she is, given where they are in their circumstances. Especially because, like, what? She's
Yeah, no,
18 at the time. She is still the youngest person in the group.
she's yeah, no, because they started what?
She was
She was
16.
14.
I thought she was
No,
16
she
when
was
they started.
14. She was 14. Her sister was 16.
Yeah. But still, she
And
is the youngest person in the group, and then she became the leader. Thus, she had all this responsibility upon her as the youngest person. Whether she was 14 or 16 at the time and such like that, she was still the youngest person in the group with the highest expectations. And now she has to lead what she would assume is reasonable adults at the time and such like that, but they're kind of still like they haven't gotten out of high school.
No such thing as reasonable adults.
Mm-hmm.
Heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. No such thing.
You've heard me talk.
Exactly.
Um, but like, yeah, given the circumstances at the time, like, okay, we're gonna put it into a real world circumstances, take out the fantasy elements. They are at war. That's just a fact. They are at war. They are lost and unable to get back to home. And here are two of your teammates or friends that are just like, oh my god, I love you, I love you. It's like, can you guys focus on the task and help us try to figure out how to get home?
At the end, it felt more like it legitimately felt more like Miles knew what was coming and just wanted to rush as much of the fan service in as he could instead of actually writing.
I'm gonna be fair. That was actually my favorite part of season 9, her finally getting to vent it out.
No, yeah, that's why. But like, okay, I feel like that the whole venting out part wasn't so much Miles trying to write a good character moment, so much as it was Miles trying to yell at the fandom for everything.
Fair, a little bit fair.
And you want to know what like gives me the 100% this was Miles giving everyone the middle finger? It was the fact that we got Neo to have actual character development and a very good end just to have her bow out at the end and never see her again.
If Volume 9 is uncanon now, so all of Neo's character arc in the entire Ever After thrown to the wind.
It never existed. Goodbye. See ya. We'll talk about it another day. It's not today.
And okay, since we're gonna get back to the world building and such like that, like let's just remove the characters now and stuff like that. That was the cause of it. The world of RWBY is so consistently interesting, but then there's a dash of what the hell is going on here. Because, okay.
Oh.
Let's go back to the lore a little bit.
Don't you dare get me started on the gods.
I was gonna actually say.
I will throw them both out a window. They were the best idea used so poorly.
Because it's like, okay, I get it. Like, so magic is blessed upon by the gods and stuff like that. That's fine. We're going back to Legend of Korra. The bendings were blessed upon by the spirit animals and stuff. No problem. I could follow along with you from there and such. That makes sense. We're following like Legend of Korra, the gods of Greek and such like that. That's fine. I'm following you from there. And then you said, we're gonna peace out because one person did a really effed up all of humanity.
They said we're going to peace out because one person tried to trick us, so we're gonna deem the whole project a failure. But we're gonna wipe the slate clean. And then we're gonna leave this person here under the assumption
who is the cause of the problem.
Not only that, we're going to damn her for eternity and make her think that there is no more people out in the world. Then we're going to come back when she's not looking, plant people in the world, not give them magic this time around, resurrect her ex-husband and not tell her about it. Oh but yeah, also, don't mind the fact that we send the ex-husband on a mission to kill everybody if we think they're bad people.
As well as the fact of like, oh yeah, there's supposed to be this balance and everything and stuff, and it's just like, oh my god.
Hey, you see that balance scale? That balance scale has an elephant with a feather on the side. Please tell me how.
Like, okay, I understand why the gods would be upset and such like that, because you know it's not like we have mythos of gods in our own IRL world where they're petty for no like hell of a reason and such like that. But to be upset over little things like that and such like that and such like that and make the decisions that you did make no sense and such like that. Okay, yeah, you're upset and everything about this person tricking each other and stuff like that, but you two are brothers. You clearly in the same scene realize, "Oh, we've been tricked. We could handle this together cuz we know each other." And such like that. Healthy communication between two brothers and such, let alone gods, for once. But then instead of addressing who the exact problem was, said, we're just gonna avoid it.
It's all part of the experiment. It's all part of the experiment, fellas. Like, sometimes
no, you wanna know what's
gaslight your entire civilization.
No. The god, the god of light. I'm gonna call it the god of light, god of darkness, BS and stuff. I don't remember what their actual names are and stuff like that.
It's the god of creation, the god of destruction, literally.
Okay, but the god of creation was an even bigger, a bigger dick, because he was the only one that sent Ozpin to go and do the whole save the world kind of thing and stuff like that, resurrection stuff. We don't even know if the god of destruction was in agreement to this.
In defense of the god of creation, in his defense, he is not petty about anything. He thinks he is always in the right, even when he might not be in the right. That is how his character is written. Now, am I saying it is am I saying it's a good way to write a character? Yes, if you had used him more. If there was more case use rather than the 3 times we see him, where
which is in the backstory for Salem, the backstory for Oz, and the backstory for Volume 9's world.
Yeah, that's about the only 3 times we see him. Now, I would have liked to see more interactions with the god of destruction. I feel like the guy was
seriously had a Zeus Hades situation.
Yes, he was dealt a bad hand. He got the short end of the stick, and he tried to do something good with it. He tried to create his own creations, his own beings, flawed as they were, but he still tried. And then when he saw somebody
taking an interest,
came to him for help, despite the fact that they were trying to trick him. He
got really enthusiastic about it. Given that, it's so understandable.
Everybody shit on me for the longest time. I finally see a pretty blonde girl coming to ask for her ex-husband. Why not?
Yeah, I'm down. It's wow, okay. You need anything else from me? I need friends.
Oh, it literally felt like a lost puppy going I got friends now. I have friends now. And then the god of creation coming in
and breaking that reality is
not only shattering that, my man Ozpin got brought back to life and disintegrated within the span of 10 seconds.
That's a very short lifespan, my dude.
He came back, struggled to recognize what the hell was going on, and then immediately Thanos snapped out of creation.
And okay, don't get me started with the world in Volume 9 and such like that. From the backstory of the cat, from what we understand, the brothers literally just made stuff, let them free, and just forgot about them. And you know who else also did that I also really, really dislike, and so does a lot of people dislike from the respective fandom?
No.
Pink Diamond.
Oh, okay. That's where we were going with this. That's a different ballgame altogether. Okay, I can have a tirade on that. I liked the first 2 volumes of Steven Universe. The first 2 seasons were great. Everything immediately afterwards was hot garbage.
All revolving around Pink Diamond.
Yeah, no, everything. Look, I just remember. You just reminded me of the Simba meme where they're like, "See that? Everything the light touches, that's ours." What about that dark place over there? We don't talk about that. We don't touch it. We don't go near it. It doesn't exist.
But like, okay, so here's the thing. RWBY has potential if it was written by very competent writers.
Enough. Some of the YouTube channels, some of the fandom YouTube channels have actually done a better job at rewriting the entirety of RWBY. Like
I've had D&D campaigns where we've had a more interesting plotline than RWBY ever came up with within the limits that we had, because you know D&D has a lot of limits that if you were to play a certain class and stuff like that, it's possible to do so if you put strict guidelines rather than just saying F it, let's do whatever we want.
Okay, hear me out for everybody that's listening to this right now. Hear me out. I know it sounds like we're complaining and we're going like, oh well,
we could do better and stuff. No, that's not what we're saying.
That's not what we're saying. We're saying not we might not be able to do better, but I know sure as hell Miles should have been able to do better. And the very fact that Volume 9 gave us, despite having all that the fucking
decanonizing and stuff like that and everything.
Decanonizing and like just trying to put all the fan service they could into it as possible. He got all the plot lines and the storylines and he made them cohesive. He made them interesting.
Yeah, like the whole plot line of the legend of those original travelers that John had met while he was there and stuff like that. That was very fascinating. I was super invested to learn about them and everything. Within that one season. That was super interesting. And then when we met the
the cat actually had some kind of like reasonable
villainy.
Reasonable villain arc.
And also I'm gonna be fair, he was scary.
Yes. He didn't show the scary presence like when you first
until he got to Nia.
Yes, until he got to John. When you start figuring out there's something up with that cat, and then when you really think back about it,
there was always something up with that cat.
There was something up with the cat, and you really look at it and you're like, why is he so hell bent on getting them to this point? And then you come across John, the cat starts feeling more cornered. There is a sense of urgency for the cat as a villain to get them from point A to point B.
And honestly, the whole volume 9, which is, again, it's super unfortunate that this whole volume is decanonized and such like that. It's very fascinating and helps build the story of Remnant in the way that it is, such as like, oh, there's these creatures and stuff and everything. We have a little bit more lore and such like that. What the gods did and who they are is not good and such like that. And honestly, it was super fascinating. I love the world building, even though we only got to see little bits of it here and there and such like that. It was good. It was okay. I wouldn't say it's as great as Volume 3. Volume 3 is a very high bar to beat. I'm gonna be fair.
If we take a step back and like I'm trying very hard to be objective and not to look at any of them with rose tinted glasses, because like those were Monty's volumes. They were Monty's babies. You can feel the animation difference. Not to say that any of the animators for the later seasons were bad. I'm just saying their fight choreography could have been better.
But like looking at the story from the balance of comedy to the seriousness of the plotline and such like that and everything, it was still very well balanced between volume 1 through 3 in terms of what they were going for and stuff. And then Miles got into the groove of what he was writing for late volume 8, definitely in volume 9.
Yeah, no, volume 9, he brought in like his whole strong suit again. It kind of felt like he knew where this was going. He it felt like he finally got his shit together.
And that's the
And
thing. We're not saying Miles has to write more like Monty. That's not what we're saying
no,
at all. We just need Miles to write to his strengths.
yeah, so okay. Miles' strength was always more in like, and I'm gonna bring Red versus Blue into this because that's another show that recently ended too.
And he had
It
a lot
ended.
of writing in it too.
He had a lot of writing in it. It ended on a great high note. Like if I have to make a major comparison between both shows,
Mm-hmm.
Miles' writing is in like dark comedic sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
That is where he is. He's good at writing stupid, dainty characters that are always in the middle of it, but that don't really know what they're doing. He's not really a like sit down, have this be serious kind of person,
And that's not
which
what
is
we're
why
asking at all. Honestly, I could say RWBY since volume 1 has never been a super 100% serious show.
yes, but I would like to attribute that to Monty and the fact that they struggled with Monty because they always tried to get Monty to like sit down with them from again. This was from like interviews from like years ago. I'm trying to like remember it off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
They had said we kind of struggle with him because we have to get him to come in first and sit down and then explain to us how he wants us to write it. And then 90% of the time they would say he'd just show us the animation. We just have to write around that. And that would kind of help them out a little bit here because they're writing around the fight scenes. They're trying to go like, okay, we have this fight scene point A to point B. What happens in between point A to point B?
Mm-hmm. Like the big fight from what the first like 3 episodes.
Yeah, the first 3 episodes had a big fight where like they're
Team
taking the
RWBY, Team Juniper are doing their like premunal exams and such like that and everything. Here's the big fight. How are we supposed to get to that point of having this team and this team work together to fight this monster and such like that and everything? And they worked with it. That's essentially how they worked around it and such like that. Monty had an idea of like this seems cool.
If anything, I feel like Miles writes better under pressure than he does when he's left alone to it. So like when he has a timeline and somebody goes like, "Okay, we basically already have the fights made. We just want you to do the in-between work and you just have to connect them." Where I feel like that's where his strengths 90% of the time are.
Yeah,
It,
like okay, we talked about it
it
before. He had an idea. He knew where Monty wanted to go with this story and such like
yeah.
that. I don't understand why he didn't realize like, okay, he has essentially the idea of where he wants to go with this story and stuff. Why not just simply put it as a skeleton, a story skeleton, and then figure out the plot lines between that there.
Mostly because you're missing the element of Monty, where Monty would already have things done,
Mm,
and he would try to push it a certain way. Whereas now they're having the animations be based around the writing.
yeah, which we haven't touched the writing, the animation yet. We've only talked about like the writing and the character development of the story and such like that. And this is the last point. I'm gonna talk very briefly about it because I understand that they transferred between animation programs, so it is gonna be a tough sell
Oh yeah.
to do so. But I feel like the gravity was kind of turned off after they switched to animation to Maya and such like that when they were doing the fight choreographies. And that's the thing though. If you switched over to animation programs, it really shouldn't change how you plan out the animations and such like that, but I think they were really compromising on how to work with the program rather than making the program work with them.
Yes and no. Okay, I feel like they wanted to take. I feel like they became stubborn. Like they wanted to take the pipeline from their first animation program into Maya, and that just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they try to shuffle it back around, get themselves together. It is a learning curve. It's not that big of a learning curve. I've tried it. The real learning curve comes in the asset creation department, where some things will work, some things will not work, some riggings will crumble and fall, some will overextend, and you're gonna have Jean with one really long arm and one really short arm.
You'll
It's
have
just,
things clipping into each other and stuff like that.
yeah,
We already saw that from the first 3 volumes. We're used to that at that point.
yes, but the thing is, they wanted to like become more concise. They wanted to have it be smoother.
They wanted to
And
have a much more diverse world as well, so they had to script the program to generate more random assets of like random characters in the background and stuff like that, rather than the black void people that they used to have in the original volumes from the original program. So
I feel like this, again, personal opinion. I would rather have the Black Void people back, or at least have
less
random,
people.
less people. Yeah, like I get it. You want to make the world feel packed. You want to make
But here's the
all this
thing,
stuff
like,
happen.
if the world is like at a brink of, okay, especially on volume 4, it's the world's in disarray. All the telecommunication is pretty much just cut off, and assuming also that most of the resources are getting cut off because communication is cut off and everything from the other nations and such like that, having desolate towns makes sense.
So
Until you figure out what you want to do with the whole generating random background characters.
no. I understand this, but another thing that they kind of skipped over. So like we have towns that are basically bordered off and protected, right?
Yeah.
But it is from the same world building understanding that the reason why you don't have more towns or trading outposts out in the world is because, one, huntsmen are getting killed faster than they can be replenished, and two, the Grimm are way more aggressive out in the wild than they are near the borders.
Mm-hmm.
So why the hell are you sending people, like, okay, I understand it when they went in Volume 2 that the giant underground city that was basically a mass grave.
Mm-hmm.
I understand when they try to make it a big expedition towards that, where they had sent a ton of huntsmen, they had sent a ton of people, everything was essentially being well established until you got to the point where the Grimm adapted to the strategy, where the Grimm said, "Hey, you know, we're gonna become more efficient hunting. We're gonna become more efficient killing machines too. You know, if we can't get in through the top, we're gonna get in through the bottom."
And
That's what they did.
and yeah, and it's like ants or termites trying to get into your home, kind of logic.
Exactly.
Which is fine. It's like that's reasonable. That's reasonable. Like giving life to the non sentient animals that you have in your world and stuff like that. I mean, not non sentient, non intelligent, high intelligent characters in your world.
More instinctual characters.
Yeah, and such like that, and that's fine and everything and such like that. But again, that gives you reason to not have the randomly generated mass amount of people, minus the island. I think the island is the only one place that I can understand having in volume 4 having to have a lot of people into it and stuff like that, because that's all White Fang territory kind of thing and fauna. But
we never actually got to see, like, because supposedly the White Fang really never had an issue with the Grimm, because there's basically no Grimm on their islands. The only Grimm that they really get from point A to point B
is the travel between the island and any other nation and such like that, which is funny.
So like that's fine, but that also kind of brings into questions like, okay, so they've never been, I guess you can say, hunted by the Grimm, like not in any clear sense of the word, because they're more like inconvenienced by them from one island to the other.
Yeah.
But the episodes where like you have Sun and all of them come in You have the people from Vacuo, like they've been under constant siege from the Grimm since like day one. Where is like their perspective on it? Because it's a very night and day difference. Like how would you represent that? Because you can have like Blake. Blake never really struggled with Grimm to begin with. She would struggle with people more than she would struggle with Grimm.
Yeah.
So I feel like that could have translated into story a little better, or her interactions with the Grimm. Like the Grimm are the best antagonists that are the least developed, and even more so once they introduce Salem.
Mm-hmm. And it's just really weird that, okay, this is a very minor detail, but it just kind of crossed my mind. Where are the other animals within this world and stuff? We have corgis that exist if Zwei is a thing.
Okay, they do address that. They address it by saying the Grimm don't care about them. So the only thing the animals have to run away from is people and other animals.
It's not like corgis get upset and judgmental too and stuff like that if the Grimm are going after emotions and everything. I'm just saying.
Now, the very fact Zwei can turn into a fireball means Zwei is either magic, dust infused, so that animals
or a
can
robot.
use, or they have auras.
And see, that's just the weird questions from the world building that just never get addressed and everything. That's the last thing that we wanted to touch on. It's like RWBY has, because I need to wrap this up. RWBY has like such great potentials, but then there's so many questions and then never get addressed, and yet the biggest priorities are things that we never had questions in the first place.
I feel like Miles dropped the ball with world building in favor of like trying to advance the plot.
Which is I feel like, not an issue, but he didn't really handle it all that well.
Yeah, no, he could have tied off the loose ends like early on in it, and then just kept the plot going instead. You know, with having that in the background.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of decided to go like, I kind of don't feel like it.
Yeah, and it's just like, what now and such, because now the potential of RWBY is up in the air now, considering that the rights for RWBY is currently, as of this recording, still unclaimed.
Yet supposedly there is a claim for it. Somebody is making a play for it. Whether they're actually going to get it or not, because Warner Brothers is notorious for that, is a completely different story.
And then, okay, don't, like, this is completely aside. I know I said I was wrapping it up, but now we have to include DC into all this and everything. It's just like, come on.
The movies were a mistake.
Please decanonize them, please.
Actually, if I'm remembering correctly, they are a canon. They actually do exist in the universe.
Decanonize them, please. But yeah, okay. That's our little rant. That is the dumpster fire of RWBY's writing and world building and such like that. Do you have anything to say before we go, Clef?
A million more things to say. None of them would actually be very productive. So I will bow out now.
Alright then. Y'all have a Otaku Nightly Hour tonight, and see you next time. Bye!
Y'all are nerds.